Good afternoon, Dunkirk and Fredonia listeners, and welcome to News at Noon. News at Noon is brought to you by Fredonia Radio Systems on WCVF 88.9 and WDVL 89.5. I am News Director Lee Pye, here today with my news assistants Dan Quagliana, Sara Lodespoto, Joshua Ribakove, as well as Hunter Halterman and Sports Director Matt Volz. With this top-of-the-hour update, we'll bring you to the latest of SUNY Fredonia's campus news and events, sports, weather, and music. First up, we'll bring it to Dan for our latest campus news updates.
Thanks, Lee. On Friday, Broadway star Eden Espinosa, best known for her turn as Elphaba in Wicked, will be leading a masterclass in which several musical theater majors will have the opportunity to participate. Espinosa, along with the students, will sing songs prepared from the Broadway repertoire, and then Espinosa will give advice on their vocal and acting techniques. This masterclass is available for anyone to attend. Later that night, at the Fredonia Opera House, Espinosa will perform both original songs and Great American Songbook classics in a concert. The SUNY system has given Fredonia almost $1 million to implement the Accelerate, Complete, and Engage strategy, hoping to attract and retain more students. According to New York Governor Kathy Hochul, the SUNY Transformation Fund was established to, quote, support innovation, help meet the workforce needs of the future, enhance student support services, improve academic programs, increase enrollment, and modernize campus operations. Fredonia President Stephen Collison has created a Transformation Fund planning team, chaired by Interim Vice President for Student Affairs Tracy Stenger, to prepare the university to effectively use the funds. SUNY will appropriately distribute the money from the award based on Fredonia's rollout of the strategy over the next 3 years. Last Friday, the Joint Task Force on Academic Program Health, a University Senate committee, provided departments on campus with academic program health data scores. Last semester, the aforementioned Joint Task Force was created by the Senate to create an algorithm to determine, aptly enough, the health of academic programs on campus. The purpose of this data is, quote, for the university to review our program array as a whole and identify ways to improve that broad array, as well as each individual program. Departments have until October 30th to create feedback and responses to strengthen the health of their programs. Following this, on November 17th, university administration will release their own feedback to departments with recommendations. Now let's bring it back to the host.
Thanks, Dan. Next up, we have local news. A very brief start to the local news this week. September 17th through September 23rd has been proclaimed as Sheriff's Week in Chautauqua County. This past January, Todd Town lost his life in an automobile accident. He heroically saved his wife, Sandy Brown, who was the passenger in the car. Sandy had a lengthy hospital stay but was able to reunite with her family. Once Sandy was stable, her children reached out to the Chautauqua Region Community Foundation to establish the Todd A. Town Memorial Fund to dedicate their father's life to give back to the community. Town's daughter says, quote, one of my dad's favorite things to do was go on camping trips. Those trips brought to us the benefits of living in the moment and kept us connected. We would like to help out other families and give access to the opportunities like those, end quote. Michael Burham, who was accused of kidnapping of a Sherifield couple in May, entered a not guilty plea on Thursday. If he is convicted of the 35 charges to his name, it is possible he can get 261 years and 9 months of incarceration and fines totaling up to $448,400. Burham was apprehended in Charleston, South Carolina, before being brought back to Warren County Jail. He escaped jail for nearly 10 days, bringing national attention to Warren County. He was found and brought to the Erie County Prison. The list of charges is lengthy, including 6 counts of kidnapping, 2 counts each of unlawful restraint, false imprisonment, aggravated assault, simple assault, recklessly endangering another person, terroristic threats, and more. His next step in the case is currently scheduled for October 16th. That's all for your local news update. Let's bring it to the sports guy, Matt Volz.
Thanks, Lee. Well, another successful weekend for the Fredonia State men's soccer team as they remain undefeated after 2 games this past weekend. On Friday, the Blue Devils defeated Pitt Bradford 5-2 at University Stadium, thanks in no small part to 2 goals from junior forward Caleb Stewart. On Saturday, the Blue Devils traveled to Hamburg for a matchup with Hilbert that Fredonia won 2-1 thanks to 2 goals from junior midfielder Cameron Walsh. Fredonia currently sits at 4-0-3 on the season. They will travel to Geneseo for a 4 p.m. matchup on Wednesday, their first SUNYAC game of the season. The women's soccer team extended their unbeaten streak to 4 games last Thursday with an 8-1 beatdown of Hilbert College. Freshman forward Bronwyn Madden and senior forward Bree Grayson each scored twice, and the Blue Devils outshot Hilbert 41-8. The win brought Fredonia's record to 3-2-1, and they will return home on Wednesday for a 4 p.m. matchup with Geneseo in their first conference game of 2023. The women's tennis team traveled to Pennsylvania to take on Grove City on Saturday, ultimately falling 9-0. Freshman Lucy Prevet took her singles match to a third set, ultimately falling in that set 11-9. The loss dropped the team's record to 1-5 on the year. They've got a little over a week off as their next matchup is slated for Wednesday, September 27th, when they host Damon at 5 p.m. The volleyball team headed down to Meadville, Pennsylvania this weekend. On Friday, facing Allegheny College, the Blue Devils lost the first 2 sets, each by a score of 25-13, before hanging tough in the third set, ultimately falling 26-24. On Saturday against Hiram College, Fredonia lost the first set 25-22 before losing the second and third sets, both by scores of 25-18. The weekend's results brought their record to 1-8, and they'll be back at home tomorrow night as they take on Pitt Bradford in the Dodds Hall Gym at 6 p.m. In national sports news, Mike Babcock's reign as the head coach of the Columbus Blue Jackets has ended before coaching a game with the team. Babcock resigned yesterday after allegations emerged of the coach violating players' privacy by asking to see their camera roll on their phone and then displaying them up on the team video board. Associate coach Pascal Vincent will take over as the team's head coach. Former Buffalo Bills safety Sergio Brown has been missing since Saturday after his mother Myrtle was found dead in a creek behind her Illinois home. The Cook County Medical Examiner's Office has ruled Myrtle Brown's death a homicide. Anyone with information on his whereabouts is urged to call local authorities. And finally, the Bills bounced back after last week's loss to the New York Jets, taking down the Las Vegas Raiders 38-10 at Highmark Stadium yesterday. A sellout crowd of over 70,000 fans saw Josh Allen throw 3 touchdown passes, as well as the defense force 3 turnovers. Raiders running back Josh Jacobs, last year's rushing yards leader, was held to -2 rushing yards on 9 carries. It was the first time in modern NFL history that a defending rushing champion finished a game with negative rushing yards. That's it for your sports update. Let's send it to Sara for the weather.
Now, here is your Northern Chautauqua weather update brought to you by Fredonia Radio Systems.
Good afternoon, and let's get right into the weather. Today we have a high of 66 with some clouds. Even though it'll be pretty cloudy, there's a low chance of rain, so hopefully no umbrellas needed. It remains cloudy into the night with a low of 56. Tomorrow, just be careful commuting since there will be some fog early in the morning. It'll be cloudy with a high of 65. At night, it will be a low of 53 with most clouds will be gone. With a mostly clear night sky, check out the waxing crescent. That's it for your 2-day weather. Keep listening, and I'll be back with the rest of your 5-day forecast. For now, let's take it back to Lee for our local music update.
Main Street Studios is having some not-so-local music happening this weekend. Johnson Sue from Japan, as well as Tiny the Dream, Kiwi Grim, and Expat are performing Saturday, September 23rd at 8 p.m., located at Main Street Studios, 50 West Main Street, Fredonia. That's all I have for music this week. Let's bring it to Josh for our national and international news.
Thanks, Lee. Today, we are entering the 4th day of the United Auto Workers, or UAW, strike, and auto workers appear to be feeling the heat after more than 13,000 employees initially walked out on Friday. The same day the walkout began, President Biden offered a statement in which he said, quote, "I do appreciate that the parties have been working around the clock. When I first called them at the first day of negotiation, I said, please stay at the table as long as you can to try and work this out. But I believe they should go further to ensure record profits mean record contracts for the UAW." End quote. As Biden urges automakers to share profits with workers, he has also dispatched Acting Labor Secretary Julie Su and White House Senior Advisor Gene Sparling to help with negotiations in Detroit. As the strike fires on, Ford told 600 employees at its Michigan Assembly Plant's body construction department not to show up to work, as the parts they create need to be coded for protection, and the paint shop is on strike. GM also warned that due to a critical shortage of materials, they are expecting to put about 2,000 employees out of work, And to top it all off, the automakers are not paying the employees they have sent home due to these shortages being caused by the strikes. The UAW claims that affected workers will not go without reimbursement. A new state law in Illinois is in development that will order proper reburial for Native American remains that are being held in universities and museums. The act, named the Human Remains Protection Act, is expected to be an update to an older statute, the Human Skeletal Remains Protection Act of 1989. Under the new terms, any human remains, sacred and cultural objects dug up within the past 200 years must be returned to their associated tribes. The governor of Illinois, J.B., signed the new act last month. The Illinois State Museum is believed to hold the remains of about 7,000 individuals, and according to the museum's curator of anthropology, claims that the museum is prepared to reunify the remains of 1,100 individuals. Institutions in Illinois have been able to identify up to 13,000 individuals that need to be repatriated. The law will provide money for the travel and other expenses of repatriation that tribes will incur and is partially funded by fines for desecrating burial grounds. Yesterday, thousands of activists marched in New York City streets as they protested against our nation's use of fossil fuels. The protest was hosted by a large group called the March to End Fossil Fuels. The march identifies themselves as a broad-based collaboration among New York grassroots organizations, and they are calling on President Joe Biden to stop the expansion of fossil fuels. In their mission statement, they claim, quote, "We deserve a world free from fossil fuels. This is our chance and Biden's opportunity to break free from fossil fuels and build a just and safe future," end quote. The protesters called on Biden to deny federal approval of new fossil fuel projects, and they wanted to phase out all oil and gas drilling. They expect the U.S. to cease the import and export of such resources and instead rely on renewable energy. The Biden administration has been responsible for the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022, which has directed a lot of funding, hundreds of billions, to incentives for renewable energy, as well as designating millions of acres of public land as off-limits to oil and gas development. However, protesters are frustrated that Biden has not kept his campaign promise to halt new oil and gas drilling on federal lands. That's all for your national news. Let's send it back to Sara for the rest of our weather.
Welcome back to the weather, and let's get the rundown. Wednesday is mostly sunny with a high of 70. However, dress warmly in the evening since it'll be a low of 50. We'll be seeing a sunny Thursday with a high of 75. At night, there's a low of 54. Friday's weather is pretty similar with a high of 77 in the daytime and a low of 56 at night. That's it for your 5-day forecast. Let's take it back to Lee.
That'll wrap up for today's edition of News at Noon. Campus news is written and read by Dan Quagliana. Local news for this broadcast is prepared and read by Lee Pye. Weather is presented by Sara Lodespoto. Sports is presented by Matt Volz. Music is prepared by Lee Pye. National and international news is prepared by Joshua Ribakove. And finally, board operations for this broadcast are performed by Hunter Halterman. Thanks for tuning in to News at Noon. Join us every Monday and Wednesday at 12 p.m. on WCVF 88.9 and WDVL 89.5. From all of us at Fredonia Radio Systems, have a beautiful day.